From the banks of the Colorado River in Lake Mead to the homes and businesses in southern Nevada, welcome to Water Smarts, the podcast pumping from the heart of Las Vegas, where we engage with the experts who keep the water flowing throughout southern Nevada. I'm Bronson Mack.
And I'm Zuelke. From how we treat it, deliver it, use it, protect it, and conserve it, the Water Smarts podcast is all about water in southern Nevada. We hope to make you a little smarter about the one thing that keeps us all connected: water.
Crystal, how you doing today?
I'm good. It's fall. You know what fall means? Football.
Yeah,
football.
I love it.
I'm not a football fan. I mean, I like it. I'll watch it. But, you know, it's like all the time. That's all everybody talks about.
Wait a second. I know your husband likes football.
Yes, unfortunately.
I know he likes football. You have two boys. I know they like hockey and they snowboard. I have to assume they enjoy football as well. Are you the odd person out in the family that doesn't like football?
Honestly, the boys don't watch football. It's funny to my husband and I. They're not into football. I don't know. Maybe that'll change later. But no, I'll watch it. But, you know,
but you don't do fantasy. I like
going to games. I like going into football games in person more than I want to watch it on TV. They're fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, especially when you got a romance like Taylor and Travis Kelce now, and they're engaged. Makes the football thing fun for people like me.
Wow. All right. Yeah, no, I get that, right? That brings a pop culture element into football. And I have to assume Taylor there has brought more people to the sport of football, even if it's just to see if she gets caught on camera, there in the skybox while the Chiefs run wild.
I think so. People are probably going to be annoyed with me for saying that. But anyway, I digress. Our football season here at the Southern Nevada Water Authority is, we just got through our BOR 24-month study in August. We look forward to that every year, just like the start of football season. And that kind of tells us what to expect for the following year with Lake Mead water levels and whether we're going to remain in a shortage. And so that did recently come out, and we are indeed going to stay in a tier 1 shortage, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think it was any surprise since we haven't seen Lake Mead's water level come back up significantly. We are in a tier 1 shortage designation going into 2026. That means our community's 300,000 acre-foot allocation will be reduced by 21,000 acre-feet. It's the same shortage level that we had in 2025 this year. It's the same shortage level that we had in 24. In fact, if you just kind of look at the calendar over the past 5 years that we have been in shortage, we've had 4 of those at a tier 1 shortage elevation. I think the most concerning thing about the August 24-month study is kind of that outlook for 2027. Keep in mind that's still 2 years down the road. We still have 2 winters, before we see Lake Mead's water level hopefully not decline as much as they're anticipating. It could decline in 2027 based on that 24-month study that was released. But again, that just reinforces the need for all of us to keep doing what we've been doing. Changing that sprinkler clock, changing out that grass, reporting water waste. Those things really do make a difference. And we're going to learn a little bit more today about the Colorado River and the things that we've been doing as a community here to not just manage our water resources, but to really help ensure that we have water supplies for the future. Because today joining us, we have John Entsminger, the general manager of the Southern Nevada Water Authority and the Las Vegas Valley Water District, to talk to us a little bit about drought in the Colorado River. Well, John, thanks for joining us here on the Water Smarts podcast. Before we dive in and talk about all things water, can you give our audience a little sense of your background, your role as the general manager for the Southern Nevada Water Authority and the Las Vegas Valley Water District?
Absolutely. I actually grew up in Colorado, went to law school at the University of Colorado at Boulder and thought that's probably, where I would spend my professional career. But Southern Nevada Water Authority did on-campus interviewing during my third year of law school there and offered me a job. And like a lot of people that come to Las Vegas, I figured, yeah, I can, my mid-20s, I can come to Vegas for 3-4 years, get that first line on your resume, and then go do whatever you're going to do. And now 25 years later, been the general manager of SNWA and LVVWD for almost 12 years and just working with the community to make sure we have a safe, sustainable water supply. So raised 2 kids here, got married here, and in-laws moved here. It's a pretty common story for people that make Las Vegas their home.
Yeah, it's always great, obviously, when you have family here. So your in-laws here, especially when you're raising kids, and your kids are obviously a little bit older now and what have you. And throughout this time that you've been here, you've been working in the water industry, working on water issues for Southern Nevada. So one of the key things that we hear about as far as water goes and our water supply is drought. The Colorado River has been suffering a pretty significant drought now for a couple of decades, and our audience has heard a lot about it. We've communicated a lot about that because of the impact that has had on our primary drinking water supply that we access from Lake Mead. So, John, are we seeing any improvements in the drought outlook? Do you have any sense of what these drought conditions are going forward into the future?
Well, I think the first thing I would convey to the audience is drought is not a straight line, right? And, since the turn of the century, we've seen the driest year in recorded history in 2002. We saw the driest back-to-back years in recorded history in 2012, 2013, and then we're surpassed by the driest back-to-back years in 2021, 2022. We've also seen 2 of the wettest years ever on the river in 2011 and 2023. So it's an up and down thing. I think what people need to understand is you're no longer really talking about the word drought. What you're talking about is aridification and the lack of snowpack caused by climate change. And it's going to be a warmer, drier future in the American Southwest because of those conditions. People think drought, it's like, oh, we got to tighten our belts for a year. It's like, no, when you talk about aridification, you've got to make adaptations for decades or centuries.
So, and because of that aridification here in Southern Nevada, we've been under shortage conditions every year since 2022, and that has affected Lake Mead's water levels, which means the Colorado River water allocation for Nevada, Arizona, and Mexico, the lower basin states, has been reduced each year since shortage was declared. John, can you talk about how shortage conditions have impacted us here in the Valley and the role that water conservation has played?
Fortunately, our community's really been ahead of the curve. We put our first drought plan in place in 2004. Literally almost 2 decades before the first ever federally declared shortage, and our conservation programs have driven down our water usage so that while, yes, there's a federally declared shortage, that's a legal term, right? That means X elevation in Lake Mead, your legal allocation is reduced by so much, and we can talk about those precise numbers. But our use has always been below that threshold. So every year that we've been in shortage, this decade, we've still actually had extra water that we were allowed to bank in Lake Mead. Because our community is frankly the most progressive urban water conservation community on the planet, we were well ahead of that curve and still had extra water to bank, even under those declared shortage conditions.
Yeah, conservation is really a key element of our overall water management activities. And along with that, obviously, comes the fact that we recycle and reuse nearly 100% of all of the water that we use indoors. Everything that goes down a drain, we're able to capture that. We then safely treat and return that water back to Lake Mead. And every gallon that goes back in the lake, well, that allows us to draw another gallon out of the lake. So with that limited water supply, right, John? I mean, this is a key element in water management that helps us stretch our water resources. So I guess my question here is, are we the only ones on the Colorado River that use Colorado River water that are recycling wastewater, at least to the level that we are? Are there other states that are doing water recycling?
There are other states, other agencies that do significant water recycling. There are agencies in Southern California that treat their wastewater and inject it into their aquifers and are allowed to take it back out under, California state laws. So we're not unique, but I would say that we're rare to the magnitude that we can recycle. Las Vegas got the short end of the stick in 1922. We got 1.8% of the legal entitlement to the Colorado River. But our significant strategic advantage is that we're upstream of Hoover Dam. And one of the advantages of being upstream of Hoover Dam is every drop of water that hits a drain in Las Vegas can be treated, conveyed down the Las Vegas Wash, creating world-class green infrastructure and ecosystems for avian and aquatic species. And we can then take that water right back out. So we divert about twice as much water as we actually consume. And that is a huge advantage for us in being able to recycle 99-point-something% of our overall water consumption.
While we're on that topic of wastewater recycling, how about the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California? They have a large-scale water recycling facility that's being planned, and the Water Authority is partnering with Met to help fund this facility, which is known as the Pure Water Project. What is that, and how does Southern Nevada benefit from the project?
Yeah, it's a great question. Think about the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California as basically like SNWA times 10, right? They have a service territory from Santa Barbara in the north to San Diego in the south. About 19 million, Americans calling coastal California home. And even though there are some of their agencies that have some package treatment that reinjects the water into local aquifers, the vast majority of their wastewater is treated and discharged out into the Pacific Ocean and is not available for reuse by humans. So what Pure Water would do is expand their treatment capacity, build transmission through 4 different groundwater basins in Southern California, and take the majority of the wastewater discharged into the Pacific Ocean and inject it into those aquifers so it can be reused in Southern California. And that full build out, that's about 160,000 acre feet of water, which just for comparison purposes, last year, all of Las Vegas used 212,000 acre feet of water. So it's almost the same amount of water that Southern Nevada used. And our board has already approved a $750 million investment on our behalf. And so the way it will work is you don't pipe that water back to Las Vegas. LA leaves a piece of their water in Lake Mead. We get to take that out, and the local people here in Southern Nevada get to use that, and they get to use all the water generated by Pure Water in their service territory. So it really is a win-win from a regional water conservation perspective, and is also helping out all the people in Southern California and all the people in Southern Nevada.
Yeah, that Metropolitan project, this Pure Water project, I think that's a really good example of the kind of collaboration that we have put forth as a community, as the water managers for Southern Nevada, with the other states, with other Colorado River water users. And John, you're in contact regularly with those other water leaders, those other water managers in the other states that share the Colorado River. So from your perspective, how important is it for all of the states using Colorado River water to collaborate, to partner, to really agree on solutions about the river?
Well, I think it's critical because you have a declining resource. All of the promises that were made to all 7 states and the country of Mexico, frankly, are not going to be kept. The amount of water that was divvied up in the 1920s and then Mexico in the 1940s, that amount of water is almost certainly not going to exist. So you have a potential tragedy of the commons kind of situation where if one state gets kind of greedy and wants to take it all, it's not going to work out. So you either collaborate and spread out, the pain of adapting to a warmer, drier future, or you go to court and let other humans figure that out. Because the one inescapable fact on negotiating on the Colorado River is somebody's going to make the decisions. And my first, second, and third choice is the 7 governors reps should be the ones, negotiating that and sorting those things out. But if ultimately we fail to do so, then either 535 guys and gals in Congress or 9 guys and gals wearing black robes get it sorted out. But it'll get sorted out one way or the other. And in my personal life, in my professional life, my strong belief is it's better to sort out your own problems than to turn it over to other people to do it for you.
Yeah, and just as a quick follow-up there, you mentioned the 7 governors reps, and we just explained to our listeners a little bit about what that represents, because you're Nevada's governor's representative in these negotiations on the river, correct?
Yeah, no, that's right. Governor Sandoval originally appointed me, and I've been serving in that role in addition to my day job since then.
So with these negotiations, because you're literally in the room where it happens, to borrow from the musical Hamilton, we've got the Colorado River impact, which is over 100 years old, as we talked about earlier. What's the purpose of these negotiations, John, and what's the outcome you're hoping to achieve?
Well, the purpose of these negotiations is the 7 states that share the river were very close to litigation in 2004, 2005. And so the original set of negotiations produced what are known as the 2007 interim guidelines that have governed how the river operates since 2007. But those guidelines are scheduled to expire December 31st, 2026. Which used to seem like a really long time ago, right? I had a newborn infant when the 07 guidelines were signed, and he's a senior in high school now. So we're negotiating what the next paradigm is, because if you don't come up with a new set of agreements, the rules revert back to the same kind of contentious black letter law that had us on the doorsteps of the Supreme Court in 2005. You'll want to avoid that. So that's the real purpose of these negotiations, is to come up with an operating regime that all 7 states can live with, hopefully for the next 20 or 30 years.
You make good points there, and I think that's important for our listeners to understand. One of the other things that we hear, just sort of staying on the Colorado River and kind of how the water is allocated, is we hear a lot of times that, Nevada, being that it has the smallest share of Colorado River water, should just demand more water. The Colorado River Compact should be renegotiated. Is that realistic? Is it realistic to think that the overall Colorado River Compact could be renegotiated? And if so, is there a chance that Nevada could get more?
Well, I think there's actually 2 different answers to that question. And the first one is just sort of black letter law reality. Can the Colorado River Compact be renegotiated? And I would say I find that highly, highly improbable. A compact is entered into under the compact clause of the U.S. Constitution. And to enter into it, you need the approval of each state legislature, both houses of Congress, and the signature of the president. So to amend the Colorado River Compact so that Nevada gets more water, and somebody, I don't know which of the other 6 states is supposed to get less, you need the approval of 7 state legislatures, both houses of Congress, and the president. I find that improbable. But I would say, and this is the second answer to the same question, we have gotten more water. We've negotiated for the ability to take our Virgin River and our Muddy River water through Lake Mead and deliver it to our facilities at Saddle Island. That alone in the agreement in 2007 increased our water supply by about 10%. We have negotiated so that every drop of our conserved water that goes back into Lake Mead can be banked in Lake Mead even if we don't need it that year. So we have accomplished via negotiation that which never could have been accomplished via litigation or legislation.
Okay, John, I don't know how active you are on social media, but I am for the organization. So I see a lot of comments on our social media about how we should just cut off California and Arizona and keep the water to ourselves. But as you just explained, it's not that simple. It's not our water, and every state has its legal entitlement to it. We also get a lot of suggestions about how we can get more water resources for the Las Vegas Valley, and some of them seem realistic and others are, a little out there. If I name a couple of the ideas, can you tell us whether it's something we're considering or if it's even feasible?
Sure, absolutely. Or do you want me to answer the cut off California and Arizona first? Or do you
yeah, go for it. Go for it, because that's a big one.
Here's what I would say. First of all, Southern Nevada believes in taking care of ourselves, and we have. We have spent approximately $1.5 billion to build the third intake and the low lake level pumping station, which guarantees that we can pump water out of Lake Mead when the law of physics says that water cannot be released through Hoover Dam and delivered downstream to California, Arizona, and Mexico. So we are literally the most water secure municipality in the desert Southwest. As to us, quote unquote, cutting off California and Arizona and keeping it for ourselves, we don't own Hoover Dam. That is operated by the federal government. And there are, federal laws for how and when water is released through those turbines downstream to, frankly, some of the best partners we have on the river. So I understand parochialism at some level, but we have taken care of ourselves, but we're not the water master of the lower Colorado River.
Okay, what about desalination, especially Pacific Ocean water that's been piped to southern Nevada? Are we considering desalination as a possible resource option?
I believe desalination will be part of the water resources of the American West in the future. There's shortcomings. It's incredibly expensive. When the Southern Nevada Water Authority sells an acre-foot of water to the city of Henderson or to North Las Vegas, we're charging them now, I think, about $360 per acre-foot. To desalinate a single acre-foot of water on the Pacific coast costs something like $2,200. So you're talking about an enormous increase in the cost of water. But that being said, if there was a major investment being made in desal on the Pacific coast today, I would absolutely be trying to get in that room and have Southern Nevada be a partner in that so that we could get 5 or 10% of that output and blend it over our rate base. But it's also cost prohibitive piping it back. You need, as we talked earlier in the podcast about pure water, you need a partner who will exchange it with you in Lake Mead. So if Metropolitan or LADWP or the San Diego County Water Authority were building something like that, and they were willing to partner with us to let us invest in that, and they were willing to leave a portion of their Colorado River entitlement in Lake Mead for us to take, it becomes realistic. But the idea that we can pioneer something like that all by ourselves and that we're going to, anybody who's driven from Las Vegas to Los Angeles can imagine digging up a trench along I-15 and running a water line uphill, the power alone would be extravagant. It's just not feasible. So I think desal will be part of our future, but you really need a confluence of events to, bring the right parties and the right circumstances together.
Okay, last one. How about trucking or piping water from the Great Lakes or floodwaters from the Mississippi River all the way to Nevada?
First of all, the states that share the Great Lakes are paranoid enough of us that they've actually entered into their own Great Lakes Compact to prohibit the export of any water. So now you've got, I'm not sure how many Great Lakes states there are, but you got 10 or 12 senators that are not going to let that happen. The Mississippi, we hear about a lot. The first thing I would say is lots of times the Mississippi doesn't have that much water in it. If you've looked at the Mississippi over the last couple of Augusts, there's places you can walk across it. And the biggest issue on the Mississippi is transportation, because I don't know if you know how our supply chains work. Everybody's more attuned to that now than they were pre-COVID. But we bring up all of these barges from New Orleans to St. Louis and then distribute the goods across the country. And if you pull down the water levels in the Mississippi too much, those barges can't make that trip. So you have challenges there. Certainly in flood years, there would be enough water. But the second point I would make is I've spent 25 years negotiating amongst 7 states to try to solve the issues on the Colorado River. If you look at the Ohio River, the Missouri River, and the Mississippi, which are all one big system when you look at it on a map, that's 27 states. There's not enough time left in my lifetime to try to negotiate a deal amongst 27 states, again, to ship their water, in their view, across the Rocky Mountains and into the desert Southwest.
Yeah, some significant challenges there. I mean, and even just think about if you're piping that water from the Mississippi, right? Just the property rights, the easements, the approvals of all of those states, it actually becomes rather mind-boggling, which, is one of the reasons we as a community have really been focused on our most cost-effective resource that we have, which is conservation. And over the past 2 decades, John, we've seen this community's population increase. I mean, more than 800,000 people since about 2002 have now called Las Vegas home. And at that same time, we've seen our water use as a community reduced. And that's because, obviously, of some of the policies that the community has put in place. But even more so, it's the response of the individuals that call Southern Nevada home. It's the residents, it's the businesses, it's all sectors of our community that are doing their part, following those conservation rules, participating in voluntary programs to save water. And that's really one of the key things that has made our conservation activities here not just successful, but world-renowned. Can you just share with our listeners in a little bit more detail about how we've been able to be successful in conservation? And of course, huge credit going to our residents and businesses.
Yeah, well, I would certainly start where you left off and giving the accolades to the individual residents and the businesses, because it really, in my view, has been a culture change. If you were in Las Vegas, and I wasn't, but you look at the film reels of the 70s and 80s and just sort of the culture of grass everywhere and fountains and kind of extravagant water usage, we've really adapted away from that. In my view, the single biggest contributor to how we've been able to accomplish that is SNWA has served in a coordination role to make sure that the same rules apply across jurisdictional boundaries. So that pool sizes, no new turf anywhere except schools and parks, removal of non-functional turf, all of these things that the community has been asked, the exact same rule applies to you whether you live in Henderson, North Las Vegas, the city of Las Vegas, or unincorporated Clark County. And most of those suggestions were driven by citizen advisory committees. We didn't just pull these out of a hat. We didn't just go to the board and ask them to be adopted. We went to the community and said, hey, climate change is real. We have the smallest share of the Colorado River. We're going to need to tighten our belts and live within the realm of reality. How's the best way to do that? Got recommendations from the community and then applied it uniformly across all jurisdictional lines. And as you said, now we have been recognized. When we adopted Assembly Bill 356, the mandatory removal of non-functional turf, we were the first in the nation, first in the world to do anything of that kind. And within 18 months, we had signed a memorandum of understanding with 39 other municipalities for them taking the pledge to remove at least 30% of their non-functional turf. So we've always been very reluctant to shake the scoldy finger at anybody, but we have led by example. It has been noticed, and many of our programs have been adopted across the country and across the world.
John, in spring, earlier this year, we talked to some high school students that are members of the Youth Conservation Council. That conversation with them was in preparation of their Earth Day celebration that they do each year. And it was during those discussions that we were reminded that these teens have lived their entire lives hearing about drought conditions. They've lived under drought conditions. They've lived under these water conservation policies that we have here in Southern Nevada. And, it just got us thinking a little bit that there are people within our community that are kind of tired of hearing about it. They're tired of hearing about the drought. They're tired of hearing about what they can do to conserve water. So I guess my question here for you is what would you say to our listeners who feel a little battle weary when it comes to water conservation, that they have to go back out there and change that sprinkler clock again, and then they're going to have to do it a couple months later when the seasons change? What's your message to them when it comes to their efforts to conserve?
Well, this is one of those where I'm not sure I have a great hopeful message because I believe that climate change is going to cause reductions in use, across the Colorado River Basin. But what I would tell people that care about this community and want their kids and grandkids and great-grandkids to live here and have jobs here is every human on the planet is approximately 65% water. And if we don't take care of water, we're not taking care of future generations. So if you want a future for you and your family in Southern Nevada or anywhere else on planet Earth you choose to live, it's part of your duty and responsibility to your friends, your families, and the planet to take care of our water resources.
And we'll leave it there, John, because certainly taking care of our water resources is a key focus for you every single day when you show up and punch that clock and do work here for the community to manage water supplies and ensure that they're here for the long term. And we just need everybody else to do their part as well. John Entsminger, General Manager of the Southern Nevada Water Authority and Las Vegas Valley Water District, thanks so much for joining us here on the Water Smarts podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, Crystal, always good to hear from John. I really appreciate the perspective he provides, in his role in representing Nevada on the Colorado River, his role in managing water resources here for 2.3 million Southern Nevadans. So good to hear from him and kind of get his perspective for our listeners.
Yeah, it's good to hear it straight from the man at the top, right? Because he is, as we said earlier, the one in the room with Colorado River negotiations. He's been doing this for a long time, so he has such in-depth knowledge about our water history here and where we're trying to go in our future to be sustainable. But one thing that stood out for me throughout this whole conversation is just there are things we can do. There are things that are monumental tasks to take on and that just aren't possible right now. And so the one thing that we do have that we can always bet on is conservation.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the conservation success that we have experienced here in our community, the policies, the programs, the initiatives, having all of that created and put in place, that's one thing. But it's the community. It is every Southern Nevadan adopting a conservation ethic, going out there and changing that sprinkler clock 4 times a year and taking out their grass and replacing it with a more diverse landscape of drip irrigated trees and plants. It's all of those things, reporting water waste, all of those things coming together. I also think that it's important, and I think we probably ought to talk about this on a future episode. While the residents are obviously a huge component to the conservation success we've had, they represent more than 60% of our community's total water use. It's not only residents, right? It is businesses. It is commercial property owners. It is government. Our local governments have been putting forth effort. Golf courses, have been putting forth effort. It is an all hands on deck. And that's one of the things that makes our conservation program so successful, is that conservation wasn't just placed on the backs of homeowners or residents or businesses or just golf courses. It was placed on the backs of all of us. This is sort of that many hands make light work, rising tide lifts all boats. Everybody's in this together. And there's plenty other cliches that we could come up with, but that indeed is the reality, is that it has been every Southern Nevadan working together, doing their part, and doing conservation every day, right? Conservation is not set it and forget it. It really is more of a what have you done for me lately, right? What have you done today to conserve? And we get a whole lot more mileage conserving water outdoors, because all of the water we use indoors gets recycled, gets returned to Lake Mead, stretches that water supply, and really is a key part of our overall water management. Well, that's it for this episode here on the Water Smarts Podcast. We hope you subscribe and listen next time. And if you like the show, why don't you give us a rating? It helps us reach more Southern Nevadans. And if you want more information about water conservation, water quality, new technologies, everything you need to know to be and stay water smart, you can find those tips, videos, and other resources at our website, SNWA.com. Thanks for listening, and we hope you join us here next time on Water Smarts.